Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us again for Mingle Mastermind. We're so excited to have Boaz David from Human Bee joining us today. Hi, Boaz. How are you?
Hey, everyone. How are you guys?
Hi. Hi.
Cool.
We're excited.
Yeah,
I'm
Boaz
excited.
has a full-service consulting and management company located in New York's Garment District. He's been in the fashion industry for over 25 years, and he works with small to medium-sized brands to help them launch their products, help them expand to new categories. And so we're really excited to hear what he has to say about what every fashion brand should be doing during COVID-19. So thank you, Boaz, for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me. This is fun. You guys do this every Friday?
We do.
Ah, that's a fun party.
It is
ritual.
fun. And so I want to introduce the co-founder of Fashion Mingle, Beth Smith, and she's going to go around and introduce our mastermind team.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Happy Mother's Day weekend. Every mom out there watching gets a extra gold medal this Mother's Day. So thanks for joining. And Boaz, so glad to have you joining us. And why don't we start with Noelle from True Model Agency.
Hi, I'm Noelle. I am the CEO and founder of True Model Management. We're based in New York, and we represent models around the world, all sizes, shapes, ethnicities, and we're doing virtual jobs and at-home shoots, things like that. So hopefully we get together soon.
Sounds great. How about Shirin Movahed, please?
Hi, everyone. Shirin Movahed. I am a fashion and business lawyer, and I basically help brands set up a solid foundation for the successful growth and expansion of their business, and also help them, navigate through all the various legal contracts that they have to deal with.
Sounds great. Very important topics for sure. Kat Schuller, we have Kat from High Tech Moda. Hi, Kat.
Hi, how you doing, everyone, today? We're getting into the new normal, into the pandemic pivot here. I am the curator and creative director of High Tech Moda, as well as Regen Runway, which is a sustainable runway show that we've done for the past few seasons with National Geographic. And we're kind of figuring out what the next move is going to be for September with New York Fashion Week, because of all the changes that have occurred with the luxury of gathering. So we're doing a UN summit virtually, so things are shifting to be more virtual with the event production business, and I've been busier than ever trying to do that. So it's exciting, and I'm really excited to meet Boaz and see what he has to say, because this is a critical topic.
For sure. Yeah, and you're doing a lot of great things. Next, we have Laurie Rivera of the Riviere Agency. Hi, Laurie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laurie Riviere. I own the Riviere Agency, and we're a fashion, beauty, and lifestyle marketing and PR agency. We mostly, before pre-COVID, did a lot of event production, New York Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week, Swim Week stuff. And we're switching some things to virtual, but been really just helping a lot of brands sort of navigate the COVID world and figure out of the box solutions and resources that they can use to survive.
Sounds great. Finally, we have Dee Rivera. Hi, Dee. How you doing today? Oh, we can't hear you. Oh.
Okay.
There we go.
So it's Dee Rivera. I know it sounds like Riviera, but it's Rivera. I am the CEO of the DCG Group, and we do branding, we do advertising on live stream, we do the Times Square billboards, which right now we're just using it for the frontliners and saying thank you to all of them. We also do a lot of production during Fashion Week, and we're actually working right now on helping our brands go virtual, go live stream, and we're working on something very special for New York Fashion Week, September 8th. So hi, Boaz.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us again. And then we do want to let everybody know that they can post a comment or post a question in chat. And then we'll be making sure that we get all those questions answered by the end. So, okay, so I just want to get started with talking with Boaz. So let's see, Boaz, let me get you over here. There we go. Okay, so Boaz, you're going to be talking to us about what every brand should be doing during COVID-19. But first, can you give us some background on how you got started in the fashion industry and just like what you typically do to help brands to grow?
Sure. So again, first of all, thank you for having me. That's fun. Hi to everyone who's listening. And Beth, you remind me, a happy Mother's Day to everyone who's a mother. So a little bit about myself. I've been in the industry, like Melissa said, for over 25 years. I'm from Israel originally, studied fashion design, came to New York 23 years ago. And I worked here in design, development, and production for about 10 years or so before I had my own brand, women's brand. And in 2008, I closed the brand and started what Human Bee is currently, which is primarily design, development, and production company. So basically our main job is helping brands, designers execute the products. So we help them to go from sketch to finished product. Along the way, we develop more tools to help on the business end. And because we work with brands who are smaller, mid-sized, startups, we just saw the need for a lot of business advice and a lot of hand-holding when it comes to the business side. And it's just another aspect that we offer to help businesses start, build, and grow their businesses.
Mm-hmm. And that's definitely something that, we recognize as well at Fashion Mingle, because we get a lot of new startup fashion brands become members and they come to us for advice on different things. And that's like the real difficulty, right? As a fashion designer, you're creative and you have, an amazing idea. You're very passionate about it, but unless you've actually tried to run a business before, it's a really difficult thing to learn how to set up properly, but also just, know what to expect.
Yeah, of course. I always say that being creative is great. Having that vision is awesome, but it's not going to build a business. And if you look at any successful brand, there is always somebody, you might not be aware of it, you might not know who that person or who's behind it, but there's somebody on the back end who is taking care of the business itself, the financial part, the logistics, the operation. All of these things are things that are going to make the business move and grow. And with that part, it's really, quite frankly, it's impossible. And most creative people, that's not their specialty. That's not what they're strong. It's not their strong skills. So it's usually a challenge. But, the way I look at it is that creative people always can think creatively. And I think that's an advantage that a lot of creative people, when you talk to creative people, for the most part, they'll say, oh, no, it's a business side, it's numbers, it's finance, I'm not into it, it's not interested, my mind doesn't think this way. But there's another angle there, and the angle is that they're creative and they can think creatively about solutions and do things in a different way than maybe a business person would do that. So there's advantages to it. So the idea is really to first of all, make them aware of it and know that this is something they need to pay attention to. I don't think that it's going to be possible or really possible for one person to do all of that, especially if to begin with, creativity is more where they, where's the strong skills. But when when we work with designers, one of the things, my goals is to at least make them aware of the need to know about their business, the need to understand how the business is going to run, even if it's just things that they know about, and hire somebody else to do that.
Mm-hmm. And that's really great. And obviously, you know, if you're going to have that kind of person on your team, you have to think about funding. You know, it's one thing to start a collection as a single designer, and you can manage the expenses of that because you're doing most of the work yourself. But if you're bringing on somebody to actually manage the finances and the business growth, then that's going to require an investment in your company.
Very much. But, you know, I think that one of the things that fashion brands, designer, any business owner really need to think of is scalability. Like, listen, when I had my brand, I could make patterns, I can sew the samples, I can do all of these things just from my experience. But, you know, the ceiling was right here. There's only so much that I can do by myself. So at some point you start looking at your business. Maybe at the beginning, it's just how you do in order to grow something and get that proof of concept and get to a point where you feel like, okay, I have some things in place. But I think if you really want to think about your business long-term, you really have to think about scalability. And again, find a creative way to bring that person on. And I've seen a lot of great examples of designers who brought that person into the company in creative ways. So it's not necessarily just one way of hey, you know, this is the exchange for your services, but there's a way to do it. Sometimes it's just hiring somebody, you know, specifically for a specific project to help. There are ways to do that.
That's really cool. That's what I love about your business, Boaz, because you think so creatively about how to help the designer. It's not a one size fits all. And because you are a designer, you know, originally you can bring all of that understanding to how the designer thinks to the project.
Yeah, I think that's always been the thing that worked for me really well. And one of the things that I'm happy to share, because I've been in their shoes.
Yeah.
I've worked for brands. I had my own brand. So a lot of the things that, you know, some of the audience that's listening to might be facing, well, I didn't have COVID, but I had some other crises along the way as well. But a lot of the things that, you know, business owners with the fashion business deal with, I've been there, I've done this.
Yeah.
So it's in all honesty, it's a lot easier for me to understand the brand. And also what you said is exactly it. There's no one size fits all. Every business has its own, you know, special things, and you really have to pay attention to that.
Yeah. Well, that brings us to our topic today. I know you've put a lot of thought into what brands should be doing right now during this crisis. I mean, I'm sure it's getting scary for a lot of your clients, but you really look at this as taking advantage of the crisis to create opportunity for your business. So tell us about that. How are you turning this crisis into an opportunity?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a lot of things. I actually read many things from different people, advice and things that designers or any business can do today. But I'd like to focus really on three things. And, you know, when this whole thing started, I adopted that mantra that crisis equal opportunities. And I've been just keeping it in front of me. It's right here. Every opportunity that I talk to anyone, I bring this up. I really try to push this and make people understand this, because the reality is, and it's hard to say these things, because when you say that, hey, opportunities in times like that, the first response that I've got a lot of times is like, how can you say something like that? Really, there's people are losing life. There's so much bad things happening all over the world. But if you want to think about things from a realistic point of view, from a business point of view, what is happening in the world is that in every industry, in every country, in every size business, businesses are dropping. Businesses are closing. There's a lot more gap in every industry. things that didn't have enough to hold to begin with are crashing.
Mhm.
And, you know, when you look at this, just like I said, there's opportunities, there's gaps, there's things that are opening. There are going to be new things that are going to come up. There's going to be, just look at what we're doing now. This is a new way of doing business. Everybody's, you know, communicating in a different way, getting their businesses to work in a different way. There are so many things that I don't even think we fully understand how they're going to change and the day-to-day habits of how we do things. And all of these things are going to need to be addressed.
Yeah.
And there's going to be opportunities for brands to address that. So that to me is the first thing. And to do that, I think the first thing that I really hope, and if you guys won't get, whoever is listening, if you guys not getting anything from what you get today, please get this one. The most important thing for you to do now is to have the right mindset. Is to really understand that, first of all, it's a temporary situation. Eventually, we don't know when. Maybe it's a month, maybe it's a year. We'll get out of it. We'll get out of it stronger. And, you know, one of the things that I know from my life, from the country that I grew up, from anything, that the best way to come out of a crisis or to overcome a crisis is really to understand how to see the positive in things and how to see that half glass that is full. And as a business owner, you're a leader. Whether you lead your customers, whether you lead your team, whatever it is, and it's your job to stay positive and really put yourself in this mindset where you can see a light, even if everybody around you don't see the light. And it's hard. And it's hard a lot because, you know, something strange is happening in the world. Everybody in the world is having the same feelings. You know, you talk to someone and at the other side of the globe, and they having the same feelings of, like, you know, anxiety and stress and fear and unknown and all these things. God forbid if you listen to the news, that's a disaster. And one day you want to shoot yourself. So, you know, you got to find yourself that space to give yourself the room to see the opportunities and see things. And I think that this is really the one thing that I would recommend everybody to do if you haven't yet. And it starts with really, you know, just few things to apply this. For me, it has a lot to do with gratitude. I'm a spiritual person. So for me to understand and focus on the things that I have in life is very important. To get up in the morning and focus on that and instead of what is happening that is not so good, completely puts you in a different mood. And you automatically start to look at things differently. So again, the one thing that I would highly suggest for anyone is to, you know, work on these mindset muscles. The next thing that businesses can do, and, you know, these principles really, I think, work on a personal level as well, is to take the time to reflect and evaluate. If we're talking about your business, evaluate your business. Look back, whether it's a year, two, however time you think would make sense for you to look back, and really analyze and question yourself whether there are the things that you believed in. Are they still there? Are you still able to do them? You know, there are 5 things that I always think that every business should think of, questions that they should ask. And it has to do with your mission. It has to do with, you know, do you still believe in the mission that you started this business with? Is the mission still relevant? Were you able to actually follow that and go after your mission? You know, don't be afraid to look at your target customer. Maybe they're going to change. Maybe, you know, maybe to begin with, you thought your target customer is that target customer and it's not anymore. Your product offerings, service offering. This is a good time, again, to look back and see if your product is actually matching your target customer. If it's
Well, and that's a really good point you were bringing up about how to be reflective, because now might be the time to take a new path with your business. It might be the time to really make some tough decisions, because maybe the business was working, but obviously everybody's going to have to be able to adjust to the new normal. And like you said, we don't know what that normal is going to be yet.
right. And you said something that I think is the key here. You need to be, if you really want to get out of this stronger, you're going to have to look at the mirror and make tough decisions. There's no shortcuts here. Because if you're going to look at the mirror and you see something and you are going to, find a way around it without really dealing with it, it will show up. And I think that if we look at this crisis, a lot of the things that are hurting businesses is things that they didn't pay attention to. That they sort of they thought, they might have knew about it in the back of their mind and didn't want to deal with it, whatever the reason. Now there's no way out. And this is really a good time to get the fundamentals of your business strong again and make sure that you're on point. And if you need to make big decisions, if you need to pivot, again, this is the best time because there are going to be gaps there.
One of the things that I really liked what you had done a video recently about is how you should, instead of trying to focus on sales right now, really focus on developing those long-term relationships. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? And then we'll go over to our mastermind team to ask, because they'll have questions for you too.
All right. So really the third thing that I would recommend anybody, and the girls who are on PR hopefully will agree with me. I think this is the time where you can really get this connection with your customer to be solid, strong. This is the time where you can be authentic with them. This is the time where it needs to be about empathy and sympathy and understanding them and showing them that your brand is here for them. This is about them. It's about, I believe in servant leadership. And servant leadership is all about what can I do for you? And I think that this is the best time for brands to show that when they connect with the customers. It's not about how I'm going to sell you. It's not about, am I going to make another dime? And yes, it's very hard because when you look at your business, you think, okay, I need some income. I need something to help me survive here. But again, it all depends on how you want to look at your business. If you want to look at your business long-term, then investing in this customer right now, I believe will pay off a lot more down the road. Because when we get out of this, what your customers, what your audience is going to be left with is that you cared for them, that you didn't just use them to try to make another dime. You really cared for what they're feeling. You shared things with them. You were vulnerable with them. You were authentic with them. That's an emotional connection that is building a trust that I think is the stronger connection that you can have with a customer. And it's an opportunity to do it now.
Absolutely. Well, definitely want to get our panelists in on this. Please panelists, let me know when you guys have a question for Boaz. I like to ask one more thing, Boaz, about what you think, is good. I mean, do you have any feelings of like what a fashion brand should do as far as releasing their next collection? Because there's been so much talk about the collections that are in the stores now are obviously not going to be sold. The major department stores and so forth are trying to figure out how to get rid of that inventory. What do you think fashion brands should be thinking about as far as like when they should work on a new collection and actually start, working on that inventory?
That's a great question. I'm not sure there is an answer for that. A lot because we really don't know. They're talking about, unfortunately, maybe having another round of this virus in the fall. So you could be planning and finding yourself in another crisis. So what I would say is that one thing that every brand can do when it comes to inventory, production, styles, the next line, is probably to look inside first and look into what are the things that worked for you, what are the styles that worked for you, things that work for you, what are the things that you can do with the resources that you have now, and try to figure out how you can use that in order to create another season for it. And especially with the thought of like, if I'm creating this new season, which I think they should be working on their next season, but it needs to be a little bit, it needs to be thought of differently in a sense that if next season is going to have another, bad times like we're having now, what can I carry this to this following season? In other words, the line has to have a thought beyond just the next season, and something that can live with them in case something happens, or in case they go into production and now they have inventory, so it's not necessarily season. It's not specifically for the season. They can sell it again. And going back to old styles going back to your archive, try to minimize the new investment and capitalize on what you already have.
Okay, that's really smart. I think that's a great idea, is to work on a collection that's very versatile season to season, so that you can have that inventory sell over a longer period of time if we are having difficulty next spring. Yeah. Laurie, you have a question for Boaz.
Yeah, it's more, hang on, Lily. Oh, okay, perfect. It's more just a comment on a couple of things that he said. I think the idea of like making things seasonless. So one suggestion that I would make that probably I would hope that Boaz would agree with, if you can take some of your products and kind of create some evergreen products that, Sarah Jessica Parker with her shoe line has that. She has some like shoes that are evergreen, always in her line. And because her price point's a little bit higher, you can, people can kind of, it's an aspirational thing too, because people, if they don't have the money now, they can save up for it and they know that shoe is going to be there for them to purchase in the next year. So also, if you can take some of the products that you already have like overstock existing and think of any of those products that maybe you could turn into evergreen products and let customers know, okay, I have this sweater, I'm turning this into an evergreen product, and you can be transparent with them about it. It's been a bestseller. I'm turning it into an evergreen product. If you can't afford it now, I'm going to have it with us for as long as we're around. And so you can save up and buy it later. I think that's a way to take sort of what Boaz is saying to the next level. And then the other thing that I would say is, I'm going to use an example of another designer that I work with, Leanne Marshall. She repurposes so much, her claim to fame is bridal, but she has taken remnants of her bridal gowns and re-dyed them and used those for an entire season collection she did of all repurposed fabric, because she'd had, remnants from over the years. So I think what Boaz is saying is so intelligent. And it's just about you as a designer, you're going to have the creativity to think about how you can reimagine things, how you can design things. And that's where someone like Boaz, right now people I think are in a mode where they don't want to spend anything. But if you spend a little bit on someone like Boaz to help you figure out the logistics of reimagining things, that little bit that you spend can go so much farther. So that's just a comment.
I think that's so true. And I think that, especially when people are faced with so many difficult choices right now, having an outside person look at your business model and really help you evaluate what you've been doing. And because sometimes you can't see it yourself, because you're so close to your business, you can't really see it from the outside. So I love those suggestions, Laurie. Shireen's our resident lawyer. What do you have for us? Oh, let me get her off mute. Yeah.
There you are. Hi. Thank you so much, Boaz. First of all, I'm just like writing down everything that you said because they're all amazing gems. Starting with the mindset, that's something that, you know, I've been working on, as well as telling every one of my clients to sort of get that new perspective, be grateful for what you have and the ability to turn something. You know, you've had a business and now is just a time to pivot and, you know, create new things. Always see things as an opportunity. And I love that mindset. So essentially, I'm sort of on the other side of the table from you, where, you know, you're consulting with your businesses about the foundations and the fundamentals of developing their brand. And one of the things that you mentioned was, of course, you know, looking back at your business fundamentals. What is in place? What are the structures in place? Of course, on a legal standpoint, you know, do you have an actual business? Are you sole proprietor? I mean, how deep have you developed your actual business? Can you tell us a little bit about like some of the clients that you've dealt with and some of the issues that maybe you've come across in terms of, you know, their structures?
Well, I can tell you this. First of all, thank you for thank you for your feedback. I can tell you this without even thinking about specific designer or brand. I think to begin with, and that's what when I introduced myself, I talked about it. I think that a lot of designers don't think about the business, and even if you brought up the legal part, that is something a lot of designers don't even know that they need to think of. Oh, I need to talk to an attorney. They're expensive. What do I need them? Well, you need to talk to an attorney. If you want to be a business, if you want to run a legit business, you're going to have to talk to an attorney. You're going to have to talk to an accountant. Because the thing is, these people can help you see the business from eyes that you were never able to see. And I agree with you, you know, looking back at their businesses now, this might be the time, because designers, and I've seen it a lot, will do things, you know, they'll do it on their own. They'll do their invoices on their own. They might just take, you know, and agreements or things that they just found. It's doable when you do it on a small scale. Okay, you can sort of get away with it. But again, I think where it comes down to, if someone really want to think long term, and that's where when you're asking me about challenges that I've seen, brands that wanted to think long-term, many of them, in their mind, they wanted to be there, but their actions and how they thought about their business would never get them there. There would just not, there's no scalability there. The next big order over like 10 pieces, they wouldn't know what to do with the store when the store is not paying them.
Mm-hmm. So that's where having a legal relationship with an attorney would help you be able to see down the road what problems you might have to face.
Absolutely, and especially when we talk about creativity. You know, do they need, you know, is there a patent in their business or not? Is there anything that they can protect from the business? They might be even doing stuff that they've, you know, taking advantage of things that they cannot take advantage of, that they're not be aware of, and one day they, you know, it's show up. So there's things there that businesses need to think about, and I think that this is the best time to do it.
Yeah, I think you really do have to have those relationships with an attorney, with a CPA, because those especially like laws are changing all the time. Sure. And so what may have been fine when you started your business, you know, you wouldn't even know some of those laws have changed unless you had a relationship with an attorney or a CPA who could give you to alert you to that.
I'll give you another example. There's, you know, people can sell online now. There's a whole set of things they need to know about, whether it's from taxes to what they can or cannot do, what they can charge or cannot charge, you know, privacy policies, million things like this. And, you know, it's the easiest thing to start a website and start selling. But, you know, once the business starts to grow, these things might come up. And I see this all the time.
And just to follow up with that, Boaz, and I think that's one of the most important points to bring up for me, is that you mentioned it's not a one size fits all. No business is one size fits all. So you take the risk when you're using templates or, you know, getting things from online that you don't know how that actually applies to your business, making errors, and then that ends up costing you 10 times plus more to get a lawyer to fix them, as opposed to getting someone to strategically, legally advise you on what it is that you should be doing, and then getting all the paperwork together for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Now is a great time to really look at those business processes and, you know, and try to find the budget to start taking care of some of those things that you've ignored.
Sure.
Kat Schuller, you've got a question for us?
We were all talking about relationships and all that, and we're all fighting this isolation feeling. And I was wondering what Boaz feels about collaborations, you know, because brands need to work together sometimes. Adding the sustainable aspect into their business, how does that kind of help them be perceived with being more transparent, not greenwashing, but being more transparent about their business operations? But, you know, going into a directory like Fashion Mingle and collaborating with people and finding new projects that they can work on together. Because I think that we're going to get through this crisis where we cooperate, not compete. We're cooperating with each other and forming new collaborations, which I've formed some in the last month that I never thought I would do. And I think it's really kind of the wave of the future. I just wanted you to comment on something like that, so you're not competing.
Well, I think it's
so isolated.
I think it's a great point, and I can tell you this. Part of the I want to believe, and maybe that's the optimistic, you know, part in me, that we are going to, as businesses, as industry, as the world, will come out of it stronger and hopefully more together. And you brought up few things that I think are really sort of connected to each other. First of all, the collaboration, I completely agree with you. I think that this is the time to, and we see it now, by the way. Here's the thing. What happens now in our industry, for example, I can tell you this, I'm involved in making masks and hospital gowns and all these things. And it's amazing how collaborative this whole environment now. Competitors sharing, you know, resources, working together, doing things together. And I keep thinking to myself, you know, why do we need to get to this point for people to kind of understand, hey, I can work with this person. There's things that can be a win-win for everyone. And so if there's something that hopefully we can all take from there and elevate and strengthen, is this collaboration and really looking at it as everyone can do things a lot better when we do things together. Mm-hmm. You know, I've always done that. I did this with competitors. I did this with people supposed to be competitors. I never had a problem with doing this, and it always served me and served the other companies. So I think this is absolutely the time to do this. Mm-hmm. I will tell you, you mentioned sustainability, and I think that goes hand in hand, because when you think about sustainability, and you know, in one of the videos that I did and one of the contents that I put there, I said that as well, is that in order for a sustainable process to work, everybody that's involved in that process must care. They need to think about the whole and not just about what they're going to get out of it, because otherwise it's never going to be sustainable. It's never going to work. So sustainability, in my opinion, is, by the way, one of the things that I predict that will get an acceleration from this situation. I think brands are going to be more aware of it. I think customers are going to be more aware of it. If we're talking about the future of the industry, I think that even the average consumer is now seeing that there's some things in the way that things are happening in this world that are just not right. Mm-hmm. That how our clothes are made. I mean, even someone who hasn't been as involved, we all hear about, you know, what happens with factories in low-cost countries, and how big brands are not paying them and leaving them sort of like, hey, you deal with it, go out of business, it's not my business. These things, there's people's life there. There are people there who are, God knows what will happen with them. And this is the time to change this. So I want to believe that the consumer is going to be more aware, the consumer is going to be more conscious, and hopefully the consumer is going to start to demand this from the brands as well. And this is the time where, you know, sustainability and collaboration, this whole thing can come together. You know, yes, I'm aware that this might be, you know, too big of a thing and it might not happen all the way. But at the end of the day, if everyone, every person, every brand is going to do 1% more on that end, we will already have a much better place to live in.
Yeah, I've read a lot about, you know, how the fashion industry changed after the 2008 crisis. And there were just like really systemic things that changed, and a more focus on sustainability was that really gave sustainability an opportunity to grow. And I think we're going to see that situation here as well. After 2008, there was much more opportunity for independent brands to start up because people weren't as interested in consuming closets full of cheap fashion. And we've just learned over the last 6 weeks that we really don't need as many clothes as we have. You know, we're all living in yoga pants, you know, but you know, but once we get through this, there, you know, there's probably going to be that same situation that happened in the 2008 crisis, that people are going to be more content to live with less and want to put their money into something that they really care about, you know, and that they're happy that they support that designer. So it's a really great time for sustainability. Dee, I know you have a question for Boaz.
Boaz, well, I wanted to thank you. I love what you shared about the servant leadership, because that is very important, and I go by that in serving my clients. And I think it's important to ask and see what your clients need and not try to make an extra buck with them. And so that's been very successful throughout the years for me. But one of the questions I have for you, you know, I know that you've been working with designers and stuff. So what do you feel or see that they're asking you or needing? Because, you know, Fashion Week is right around the corner. It's in September. It's right around the corner for us because it's in September.
Right.
But, you know, my company is planning something from a virtual live stream point of view. And, you know, I am collaborating with certain partners. So I wanted to ask you, because I know that people are buying a lot of like Melissa said, yoga pants or leggings, or, you know, things that are comfortable, because nobody's really, you know, I have a closet full of amazing clothes that I'm like, I might as well cut them up and make masks and donate them, because like, where am I going to go in the next 8 months? So I wanted just to ask you and pick your brain and see, where do you think people are thinking of as far as in Fashion Week, and what have people been sharing with you?
So I think that, you know, most of them trying to figure out really how they're going to pass the next 2 months. You know, they're not sure. And really, quite frankly, all the questions that you guys are asking are the questions that come up. So, you know, maybe all I should have done is really just send them the recording of this and they'll get the answers. But the reality is they are, you know, they're looking into, okay, what am I doing next season? You know, am I doing this? And none of our brands do fashion shows anymore for different reasons. So that has not been the question, but it's more about, hey, do I prepare for next season? Do I show next season? Is there going to be next season? And the answer that I gave here is pretty much the same thing. You know, let's think about it of next season, but beyond that. And just one thing that Laurie said that I want to go back and touch on is the fact that when you create that evergreen product, one of the things that you don't have to do there is that you do not need to have it go on sale. So and that's big part. If we're talking about sustainability and overproducing, if we're talking about, profits for brands, you want to create products that's going to live with your brand for a while. They're going to build your marketing, going to make people really relate to your product and want to come back to it. So there's many advantages to doing this. So even if your whole line is not like that, to having these items that become your bread and butter is very important. But as far as questions, the other question is, it's going to sound funny, but do I need to do masks now? A lot of brands are asking this, and my answer to this is, I think every brand is going to have masks to offer at this point, because we're probably looking at a future where everybody's going to wear masks for at least a year or so. And, we're going to get bored of these, one-time masks. So, if we're talking about opportunities, these are opportunities. Now, it could be something that they do and sell. It could be something that they, give as part of their products offering, meaning along with it, whatever it is. But that's actually one of the questions a lot of brands are asking. Should we make masks? What should we make them? How should we make them? Things like that.
That's really interesting. So you really think that everybody, like with the collections they're coming out with, they're going to automatically include a mask? Like, I guess if you're buying a dress to wear to an event, you want a mask that coordinates. Is that what they're thinking?
It's it's a way for marketing. It's some extra money to some of these brands. It's something that we're all going to need for a while. And and the thing about mask is it's relatively easy thing to do.
Right.
Okay, it's not a dress. It's one size fits all. It can be, unfortunately, an evergreen product. You can get quirky with it. You can get creative with it. So it is an opportunity.
Okay, cool. Let's talk to Adelle with True Model Management. She's got a question for you. If I can get her to go off of mute. It's not working for me, Dell. Can you try to unmute yourself? Okay, there we go. Okay.
I agree with what all the panelists have said so far, Boaz. And when I raised my hand, I was going to ask the same question that Dee said, but I do have more. So I work with a lot of different designers and brands, and I find that our new aspiring designers are always struggling to stand out from the crowd, and there's so much noise in the space. What is like your top tip for the indie designers and the ones starting out to really shine a light on themselves, online, or once we get back to in-store and pop-up? Do you have any suggestions that you've seen really work well that not everyone's thinking of?
So first of all, I have a question for you that I would like for you to answer later on, if you don't mind. Because I'm wondering, I know we hired models from your agency before, and we work with other agencies, and I know there is this virtual fitting that sort of becoming a way to fit. I'm just curious to know how it's working. We haven't done this yet, but I'm curious how this, if it works or not.
Yeah. Well, do you want me to answer now?
Yeah, why
not? Due to COVID, now that the term is being used in a few different ways. So now our virtual fittings during the shutdown are video conferencing fittings that clients are sending the models tripods and lights and pins and all types of things to conduct the fitting at home. And also a lot of models are doing at-home shoots for products also. But so that's our latest virtual. But before, we were talking about virtual fittings, it was more 3D. Like, we have a body scanning machine at our office, and that is working by the model's body being replicated digitally, and then they're using programs such as Browseware or Clo3D, Optitex, Tukatech, programs like that are for design. They can see how it drapes on the body, how long it is, and make changes and change the color or the pattern. They can do pattern making on it, although people outside the industry, or even people in the industry that aren't really working on it hands-on, they think like, oh, I'm gonna press a button and it's all done. But there is still a lot of work to be done, and the proving concept and the, you know, AI learning and getting the algorithms perfected. So right now it's the best tool for more of the design side and showing, you know, lookbooks, and, you know, some clients have just completely digital showrooms. You know, you go in, there's no clothes there, like everything's on a computer. I have a consulting client that is doing pop-up shops where, you know, the customer could get scanned too and see the clothes on them, and they have like maybe one style of each, so they could touch and feel the fabric, but then it's like, okay, it'll be shipped to your house, you know, and it's like made for you. So they're bridging, you know, the old and the new worlds, the art and the science. Some people love it, some people hate it. They're definitely, it's a disruption, but I think it's a positive thing. And we were talking about sustainability before, and it definitely helps with that, because anyone who works in the business knows how many millions and millions of garments every year, you know, are shipped here with the backs cut out, and then they just throw it away, you know, to get through customs. So I'd be happy to go into more detail with you or anyone else who wants to talk about it. I don't want to take up all your time for your topic, but that's basically what people are doing. And they are fitting on it too. And it's usually for garments that are not super close fitting right now, and that where you have to see a lot of the compression on the body, because that's one of the points they really need to work on better. It's getting better though. They're getting closer.
No, I actually didn't know that you guys offer that. We started offering 3D as well. And then talking about where the future of this industry is, I think technology is going to play a huge, you know, a huge role in where, what will happen and how, you know, the new way of working in the industry will be. And 3D and moving things into a virtual space will definitely are going to, again, this is going to be an acceleration for it. And again, you're right. It's from a 3D, from a sustainability perspective, 3D can at least save part of the development. Can at least,
absolutely,
you know, give you some advantages on this. You're still going to need to do some things,
right? Which
is great. And it's, you know, it keeps things authentic, but it can save time. It can save money. It can save many things. So yes, there's.
Yeah, and you could collaborate with more people at once when you're all looking at the computer screen or sending a file, and just get something done in an hour that would have taken 6 weeks before. So you can get it to the store or online to be sold much faster. Yeah, but it's definitely cutting down on the number of samples and the turnaround time. So it's great.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think it's great. To answer your question, I think that, you know, like I mentioned it earlier, I have this thing that I developed throughout my years of being in business. And it's basically 5 questions that I think every business should ask themselves and be clear about. Because if they're not, they're going to hit a wall. And actually, you know, Melissa, that's the course that we are going to introduce down the road is really going to be about that. It's really fun. Understanding how to answer these questions. But I think that brands, when they answer these questions, they are able to understand where can they be, where is this place, and where is their place in the market, and how they can stand out. Because it's going to force them to look into, to begin with, what is it that they do better? What is it that they do better than anyone else? And then find a way of relating it to the customer. And I think one of the best way that every brand can get to this point is really to understand who is their ideal target customer. I don't know if a lot, that I can tell you from talking to a lot of designers, they don't necessarily many times understand to what degree they need to understand who their target customer. You really want to know everything that you can possibly know about your target customer, not just her or his age and if they live here or there. You want to know everything about their habits. You want to know how they think, what they think, where they hang out, you know, what are the brands that they love, because that will make you understand where are their pain points.
Boaz, how do you recommend that designers figure out who their target customer is? Because like, yeah, you can get that demographic data, but you're talking about really understanding how they live their life. How do you get that information?
So the easiest and best way is to really think about someone that you might know. whether you know them personally or you might know of a friend of a friend, family, sometimes even a celebrity or some. So, you know, when we were in fashion school, they would have us do this exercise when we start to design a line and sort of create a persona. And that's really what you need to do and collect information based on that. So many times what the exercise that I would do with designers is really finding out a picture of a person that they think is going to be their target customer. I want to know a name. I want to know color hair. I want to know the color eyes, everything. Because when they start to put this together, the things will start coming together. Because if you know that someone does this for a living, then most likely they hang out here and they're, you know, they hang out with this type of people and their interest is this and they'll buy this type of car. It all comes down to really getting behind it. So it's, these things can happen from talking to people. It can happen from knowing people and sort of build that persona based on someone that you might know personally or might know of. And starting putting this information together, but ask questions, really go out to people, ask them and start to put that target together, because it's not just about going to the library or going online and getting this information. It needs to be a lot more authentic and a lot more detailed.
Okay, that's really good advice. Laurie, you have a question for Boaz?
Yeah, so I just wanted to go back to the masks. You know, first of all, Gap, they sold out. I think they sold out like in less than a day when they put the masks on their website. So it's obviously something. And me personally, I've been looking to purchase masks that aren't like surgical masks. But my thing is that I don't know which fabrics are like going to provide me the most protection. And so that kind of leads me to my question, which is, how can a brand find like a unique selling point? And can you help a brand potentially find a fabric, like source fabrics that are going to, you know, form the function of the mask, but also maybe if there's overage or the crisis somehow, you know, we have a miracle and there's a cure and it ends, that could also be used for some other thing in their collection, maybe turn into a headband or something like that. Is that something that you would be able to help somebody with?
First of all, it's a great point. And mask is, you know, if we're talking about a way to stand out, again, not to promote mask, but it is a way to make someone notice. Because when we walk in the street now, everybody's looking what other masks other people are wearing, because, you know, we're looking for one for ourselves, or there's something funny about it. There's something that's going to catch our attention. And then there's the other aspect of really like, hey, is that going to protect me, and how it's going to protect me? So, you know, we, for example, one of our brands is developed their own fabric for their own line, and it turned out to be really a great product for that. So we developed a whole line around this. And there are technologies in fabrics now. It started before that. So I think the easiest way is for someone to, first of all, when they do masks, there's a lot of information on what are the right fabrics. But again, if we want to talk about solving a problem for your customer, then I would go beyond that and think about what are the things that's going to make this mask really solve the problem for my customer. And, you know, there are treatments that goes on fabrics. There are things that can be embedded into the fabrics. There's a lot of new technology into this. Like I said, we did it with one of our brand. Yes, if that's something that a brand is interested in, we can do it. I will tell you this, there might be things that are available out there, but if the need or the thought is to find something even more specialized, then that just requires time to develop. So that's something to keep in mind. But I love the idea of, hey, again, think about something that is evergreen, not just for the mask. Like if for example, again, I'm going to go back to the brand that we work with, CETA NYC, for anybody who wants to see that. Their fabric has cooling in it. It has antimicrobial. It has water resistant. So I wear the mask now, and I just, my whole face is cool just from having that fabric close to me. This can turn into clothing. This can turn into uniform. This can turn into a million other things that can be done from this fabric. And that's one of the best way nowadays to really stand out.
That sounds really interesting. So their fabric has cooling technology in it, because that's a problem with the face masks, right? It's really hot to wear them, and how is it going to feel in July and August?
Yes, yes. So they have, and the other part is really for someone who's looking into it. I'm just going to give one tip for that. There are water-resistant treatments, and you might be able to find fabrics with these, properties on them. But there's a difference between a treatment like that that's been put as a layer on top of the fabric, because that's going to be washed after X amount of washes, and something that is embedded into the yarn. And the great part about the fabric that we work with is that all these properties are embedded into the yarn, meaning it's washable. You can wash it as many times as you want, and it's still going to get you cool. It's still going to be antimicrobial. It's still going to be water resistant. So that it's something to think of.
Okay, that's great tips. So we have just a couple of questions that I want to go through real quick, because we've reached the end of our webinar. We actually have an attendee named Ellie, I think, and she's from Israel. And so she'd like to know, how active are Israeli designers in the United States?
Good question. So I'll say that I was lucky enough to work with, I think, two of the biggest contemporary designers in the market now, Nili Lotan and Ligal Azrael. And I was lucky enough to work with them when they started then. And they both are doing really well. There's quite a lot of Israeli designers who are doing very well here. In fact, I'm a mentor in FIT for a program that they run. And I just mentored an Israeli designer who's launched her line 2 years ago, and we're gonna have her launch the line here in the US. So to answer your question, there are a number of great success stories with Israeli designers here.
Very cool. Also, we have someone who wants to talk about print on demand. I mean, there's a lot of services, I guess, like Zazzle, Rajon, where you can use blanks. What do you think about that as a way for a designer to get started with a collection?
It's a good question. Again, to me, everything has to do with what you're looking to do at the end. If someone wants to start, let's say, a line of t-shirts, for example, then you really want to understand what's unique about this line of t-shirt and where do they see it going. Based on that, I would say, hey, you know what, it will make sense for you to go and buy blanks, have them printed with one of these companies and test the market, get the proof of concept, and then let's see how we're actually producing it when we know that there's a need for it. So there's that value to these places where you can test the market without big investment, with really testing few things on a smaller scale and kind of see what people are reacting to. But it's not a long-term thing. Mm-hmm. It's not something that I would build a business on this model.
Okay, cool. We have one last question. I think it's a real interesting, and I'd actually like to get everybody's opinion on this. So feel free to chime in. One of our attendees asked if we're going to do an evergreen collection. How does, like right now we say it's our spring, summer, or autumn, winter. What are we going to call evergreen collections if we don't categorize them like that anymore?
Well, the industry refers to them as 10 months because it's for most of the months, so it's 12 months in a year. So they call them 10 months. So maybe something with that aspect to it, something with the word climate in it, because you're going to refer to the fact that you can wear it, because air conditioning unites us all. So we don't have seasons anymore per se, but we spend a lot of time indoors too. So it might be that there's layers that go with it so that you can take those. But I use the thesaurus a lot, and I the finding words that mean seasonless, evergreen, those kind of things. And just live with it, live with those words, go on a jog, meditate, put all the words into some vat in your head, and you'll come up with, and read about climate and seasonless fabrics, and it'll come to you. It will come to you. It always will pop out because you're looking for it.
Cool.
Anybody else? Also, if you do create something that's like a cool phrase or word, call Shireen and trademark it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, Dee. I know you're good at that. We've had quite a few
trademark.
I know Dee is like so good with like coming up with like the craziest, funniest names.
The
like
phrase that pays.
I love it. I'm like, trademark that, girl.
Trademark it.
I think I just
want to
want
create a hashtag. Trademark it.
Yeah.
to chime in on that
You
question.
should do all my marketing, Dee.
The point of an evergreen product though would be for it to be year round, and there already is a term. I mean, of course, if you created your own, that would be amazing. But if you're not, feeling creative in that way, people call them their signature pieces in their line. So it doesn't have to be an entire collection. You would just pick pieces out of your collection that you feel will stand the test of time and speak to your brand story. So I think Sarah Jessica Parker and her SJP collection, and I know I brought her up again, but the reason I did that is because I think she's a great example of, she has these pieces that are signature shoes in her collection that are bright, bold colors that will stand the test of time, that you can buy today and you can buy, 2 years from now. And so look at what she's done. And I think that's a great example of how you can do it in a way that's not boring. The shoes that she has are like bold colors. So use that as go and look and see what she's done.
Cool. Shireen, we did have someone who asked a question about how much does it cost to trademark. So want to get that answered real quick.
Yes, it's a very good question. So really the way that I like to look at it is what are the benefits that you're getting from trademark? So before you look at the actual number, you want to look at what you're getting by trademarking, which is registering, right? You have a right to your creativity, but by registering your trademark, you're going to get the benefits of being the exclusive person in the, in that area of registration in the jurisdiction to use the product, or service, whatever it is that you're marking under your brand, prevents anyone else from using it, copying it in any which way, and also protects you if you do have to fight for it, to defend it, and that covers your attorney's fees, that'll cover your court costs. So by registering it, you actually allow yourself the ability to also defend your mark when the time comes. And I can tell you, with the world that we live in social media, every week I've got a client calling me about an infringement. So depending on whether they actually went ahead and registered their mark, we have a very different conversation as opposed to, okay, this is how much it's going to cost you to come and protect yourself and all the fees that you're going to have to pay out of pocket now to actually do something about it. And also it's an intellectual property, it's an asset. So that asset will only grow with your brand. That will be your brand. And it's something that, when you're coming in terms of valuation of your company, whether you're growing internally or you're looking for investors, that value, that intangible asset is going to have an incredible amount of value when someone is looking to buy into your brand, or if you're looking to sell your brand. So looking at it in that way, the cost for doing it, it all depends. Obviously, I charge flat fees. I don't like doing hourly bills unless it's litigation, and I'll be happy to discuss that with you. I'll send my email in the chat, so if anyone wants to reach me, they can, and we can discuss the options for you and what works for you and your brand. But yeah, I can tell you there's absolutely way more benefit than if you were not to register your trademark.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, with the global, it's so easy to just like take somebody's work now. So I think that that's really great advice to get trademarks. Boaz, one last question, because we're definitely over, but I thought this was a really important question. I'd love to get your insight on it. What do you think will be the next big country that people go for sourcing? China is so, it's the default country for a lot of sourcing and a lot of designers. Do you see any trends taking shape already?
It's a great question. The short answer, I don't know if there's an answer for it at this point. I think there's so much going on in pretty much in every country out there. But I will tell you this, China has been an issue with sourcing for, the last year. It started with the tariff. So brands started shifting product out of there for other reasons. And then COVID came and that completely changed things. But, the reality is that all the fabrics, the majority of fabrics are still going to come from China. The reality is that when Vietnam became a good place and some other places in that area become good places, so Chinese who own factories in China moved there and opened their factories there. So it's hard to tell what's going to happen now. I think that's pretty much the biggest question that every brand is trying to do. I think that what can be done and what brands should think of is, first of all, how to diversify their supply chain so they're not just, everything in one place. That's one thing. And I think if there's anything that I hope brands will get out of it, and in fact, I wish that someone in the government would have heard that, because if there's one thing that needs to happen is that domestic production needs to get a lot more support. And I think in every country, if I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, I hope that every country, no matter what, will realize how much they can or are going to or need to, especially in times like that, depending on their own domestic production. Look at what happens with gowns and masks and all this mess that happens here. The US, just like any other country, is dependent on what we can produce here. And the problem is that part was killed and destroyed for so many years that now the country is spending amounts of money that you can't even, think about to get product that comes from somewhere else, that now these places are getting their prices high and just a big mess. So I think that brands are going to start to think, I hope at least. And one thing I'll say with that, I don't know about the big brands, they have their own plans, but I can tell you this, if for all the smaller brands, this is the opportunities. This is where you can create your own supply chain and create something that is unique to you, authentic to you, right for your business model. It supports that sustainability part. You can keep things closer and really think about it, and you can get really creative. And hopefully if something like that happens again, you're not dependent on outside resources.
Right. That's great advice, Boaz. That's really exciting to think about. That's real opportunity for fashion communities all over the United States and all over the world to really dig in and find the resources locally. That's good for the environment. It's good for creating jobs and building the economy. So I'm excited. And, actually on Fashion Mingle, I don't often tell anybody on these webinars what Fashion Mingle is or does, as Beth likes to remind me. But we do actually have all of these, we're a membership platform where businesses can actually be in a fashion director when we have 12 categories, and one of them is production. So, if you need, somebody, whether it's, a company to actually do the manufacturing, but also if you just need to hire a seamstress or a pattern maker, any of those kind of things, you can actually go to fashionmingle.com and you can sort by city, you can sort by category, you can sort by country. And so that's what we want to do to really help, create opportunity and jobs for the fashion industry in every city in the world. And it starts by connecting each other, and that's what we've done on Fashion Mingle. So, well, we are gonna cut this off. We've gone a little bit over, so I appreciate all the attendees who have stuck with us through the end of the webinar. Boaz, it was wonderful having you. I always love talking with you and hearing about your all of the insight you have into the industry.